Welcome, everybody, to the Evolution Podcast, where Dinka Salvador from Trinity Code and myself from Better Brain Project, both of us from Evergreen Foundations, run our school-based podcast, where if you follow along, you know that we shine a light on a lot of everyday superheroes who, a lot of them happen to run school communities as well. So we're welcoming back Dr. Sharon Prahl to the podcast for round two. Hey, Sharon, how are you?
Awesome. I've been totally looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. This one throws me off because I always ask who is at the beginning of these episodes, but we've already talked. So instead of that, what's on your mind today, Sharon?
There's been a few things on my mind. One that we didn't talk about that I definitely want to address today because of the timing is daylight savings time and a couple of things that we can do that help us more gracefully move through that change. And then the other things are the ones that we talked about in the post. So, what's the deal with nervous system regulation and how is that being misconceived by some people? And and then the other two things, which we might have to read out again because sometimes I get a little excited and forget the structure that we laid out ahead of time.
Well, I love that we have minimal structure and we kind of just get to talk. You and I can talk pretty easily because we're both neuroscience nerds. We love the
Yeah.
brain. Um, what have you been noticing the most lately? I know we talked about this off camera a little bit.
Yeah, I think the first thing really is when nervous system regulations really become almost a buzzword. It's being bandied around a lot without anyone talking about what they particularly mean by that. And to me, regulation is a bit of a challenging word because if you regulate something, to me, that is perceived as a tight boundary. Like here I'm appearing in this rectangle. So if I'm regulated, I'm within the rectangular shape and I only go this far and that kind of thing. But a nervous system that isn't dysregulated, right? Like we don't want to be dysregulated. Dysautonomia is the big fancy word for dysregulated nervous system. And it's pretty horrible. You get all kinds of weird paresthesias, feelings that aren't there, but that feel like they're there. Like the whole thing is really goes haywire. But regulation isn't a set state. It's actually the resilience, it's the adaptability. So when we're really in our um, parasympathetic, so regulation isn't also in the middle. So yellow, orange, red alert. But then we've got, I call it green, deep green, blue green. This side is rest and digest, the healing mode. And this side is survival mode, right? Like fight or flight, ready, ready, alert. And so regulation really means we're way over here. Like if we're living in our most natural healing state, we're way over into parasympathetic, into the healing rest and digest state. But it also means that we're not stuck there. We can respond really quickly to an emergency and come back out of it really quickly once it's done. We can come up and out. We're very fluid. We're very resilient. And so to me, regulation is more fixed. And I've been seeing people perceive it that way, but it's actually more resilient. It's not, like when they show the heartbeat in all these TV shows and it's the exact same stroke every time, that's actually a really sick heart. It's not responsive. It's not slightly changing from the sounds in the room and the movement in the room. So does that help a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, that totally helps. For I feel like you're right. There's a parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous systems, regulation. These have been hot button words, especially probably on the social media platforms. What does it mean to be in those states?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think it's awesome that it's in the media. It's awesome because the nervous system, right? Brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves, like the whole system is the primary communicating system in the physical cells. And it's also the primary coordinating system. So I think of that as command central. And when we're in parasympathetic, rest and digest, It's not necessarily a Zen still, detached state, although it can be. It's just where we haven't slid up into yellow, orange, red alert, where our attention goes, our energy physically in the body goes from healing, organs, circulation, digestion, all of this fun stuff. And instead, it starts going to monitor the environment. So it's like I live near the airport in Minneapolis. I'm not too far away. And when you drive by there, there's a big sign on the highway and it says DEF CON whatever, to let everybody know what state of alert we're in. And that's what ready, ready alert is. That's what fight or flight and sympathetic is yellow alert. All right. Something has alerted to me to a possible danger. A certain amount of my 100% energy I have available to me is now being shunted from body health and rejuvenation and creativity over to defense. So the the energy goes to the arms and the legs to be ready to run for it, duck and hide, or beat our way out of something. And so then that energy is not available for digestion, healing, show function, ocular vision, peripheral vision, ambient sound, memory, creativity, like all the fun stuff. Some of it is just on reserve. Yellow alert has a certain amount. And you can think of it as percentages, 33% in yellow alert, 33% in orange alert, 33% in red alert. Yeah, I know that doesn't add up fully, but we're going to pretend. So, so, so when we get all the way over into like the very top end of red alert, then up to 95% of all that available energy we have for the day has now been shunted to our arms and legs. And so we've seen people when we've been in conversations, I think everybody's experienced this. You say something, relatively simple. It might even be a question like, what did you have for dinner yesterday? And there's like a millisecond to even seconds lag time between when you ask the question and when they hear it, like when it registers. So that is often a sign of being in alert ready mode and pretty far over, like high orange, low red. So when we don't have that energy for us to process, it's just busy. It's not like it's not there. It's being used to monitor. We're monitoring the situation with our hearing, with our vision, with our senses to make sure that we can survive to the next moment. Does that help see the difference a little better?
Yeah, yeah, it does. It really does. And I love how you put it actually. Yeah, I've seen this quite a bit in my life and those around me. How much of the population do you think sits in that like yellow and doesn't really realize it for
Most,
yeah,
the vast majority.
yeah.
I mean, it's sad as um, it's an autopilot mode. It's not like people decide to be there. Are there things we can do to not be there? Absolutely, of course. Are they relatively simple? Yeah, most of them are free and easy, but just building them into the day. And I think the biggest thing, that we can do that gets us out of yellow, orange, full red alert, like way over here, is chew our food to paste. How free is that? Don't count. Don't focus on it. Enjoy the food, savor the company or the view, because all those things also will bring us out of alert mode. But chewing our food to paste, there's all these signals in the masseters, in the muscles that we'll chew with, all of this whole jaw area. When we chew, we're actually signaling to ourselves that we're safe, and so that's the other thing that people, it's kind of a buzzword too, is like to be safe, to have a safe space. Well, my brain is just wired to look for differences and to look for patterns. And so if someone tells me, oh, this is a safe space, I don't necessarily hear that in a relaxing, calm, welcoming way, the way they probably mean it. I immediately think of is, if this is a safe space, does that mean there's danger nearby? Like, I'm already jumping to see both sides of it. That's not everybody. People have different communication styles, but we're not really looking for a safe space. I mean, we are, but that word will trigger in a lot of people the opposite. They'll be thinking about the opposite. So what do we say and say instead? We don't. We don't name it per se. We just be welcoming, right? We be kind. We care about people. That is inherently perceived. We don't have to name everything. Sometimes naming things works against the experience of what you're naming, and it puts us into a different state in our mind.
Yeah.
So, does that ring true for anybody?
Yeah, it rings true for me for sure. I totally resonate with a lot of that. Dinka, how about you?
Yeah, I agree that sometimes naming things can be counterproductive. However, I also strongly feel that not everybody is on that level because the brain doesn't like open loops. So
Right.
you have to put a name to it. So for some people, actually being aware of this is what it is can maybe be the first step. And then starting to accept it for what it is and not putting that label and kind of dissociating from it
Yeah.
is the work. If
Yeah.
that makes sense. I don't know
It
what you
totally
think of it.
does. And I agree. I agree. I think one of the communities that's on Skool platform is Tim Adio, and it's what is it, relationship dynamics?
Mm.
And he really goes into, what are our cues that let the other person know, like this. Or, I'm starting to be uncomfortable here. I'm not feeling safe, or I'm not feeling comfortable. Like, looking for those and understanding those so that we can, really be present with where the other person is internally, as well as what they're saying in a conversation. And so I agree. I do think that words have immense power. There's something called cymatics. Have you guys heard of this? Cymatics, it's with a C, Cymatics.
No,
Yes,
I have.
I have.
Yeah, cymatics is super cool. I mean, you're going to love this when you see it. It's the vibration of the word. So, when we look at like biblical statements, in the beginning was the word and the word was God. Cymatics kind of proves that relationship of the vibration of a word and an experience in physical life. And so one of the things they do, there's videos of this, and they'll take like monks who have sang Om for decades, and they'll put a mic up to them and transmit that sound vibration into like a cube of water with sand on the bottom,
Mhm.
so that the vibration goes into the water. And what happens is when they're singing Om, the vibrations through the water create a shape in the sand that is the symbol for Om. It is that symbol. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. The word vibration is the symbol, but it's beyond the symbol. It actually holds the consciousness of that word. And so words have power. And so that's when people say, well, we can speak into being. Well, there's a lot of truth to that, a lot more than what most people think. They think, oh, it's airy fairy, or it's faith, or it's this, or it's that. It's actually vibrational. So I really get what you're saying, Dinka, about, using the words to help open up a new space, a new consciousness. And then when we do that, and we're also, when we can see our audience, right? Like, we can't see everybody right now in the audience, so I can't do that per se. But we can also set the intention to just let everything that's truly going to serve the most people, both all of us live on this call and the people listening later, that's also going to change what comes out on a pretty subconscious level, but it's really effective. So, cymatics just shows that relationship between sound vibration of a word and how it can show up in structure. And so, using our words in a way that builds what we want to, and putting our attention on what we want to build instead of rehashing the parts of our life that didn't go well. I'm not saying to never look at it or never learn from it, but for instance, there was a gal, she was in her 80s, like mid 80s, and she came into the practice, and she, in her history, she would get like her history taking, where I listened to everything they've been through and what they want to change, right? So she would get really animated, and it was like she was on stage, explaining these horrid things that had happened to her. And I'm like, well, this is a new one. and and I talked to her about it. I said, I see that you're really reliving the experience when you're talking about it. And it became a problem because she would do that in the middle of a session, like in the middle of getting adjusted and going into more ease. She would remember uh, a, a totally traumatic moment and then relive it by telling me all about it again. I already had heard her, but she was going through it again. And she would do this 2 to 3 times in maybe a 15 to 20-minute period. And every time she did that, her nervous system went back into yellow, orange, red alert. It had been starting to come out and come down, and it'd go back up. And eventually it would start to come down into parasympathetic, and she would bring it right back to fight or flight. It was like an addiction.
Mm.
And when we talked about it, I brought her out of the treatment room. We went into the private office, and I said, each time you revisit that, you're strengthening the pathway of it as though you're living it now, but you're not. You are out of those situations and you are here for healing. It would really help if you didn't continue to do that. If you have something you must say to me, go ahead and say it, but don't let yourself just go down that relive it mode automatically.
Yeah.
Because it's slowing your
Right.
healing process. In fact, it's reversing it.
Yeah.
And she didn't know that. She had spent years learning how to communicate because she had grown up very stoic.
Mhm.
And she felt that if she, augmented those emotions and her story, that was healing. And it is to a point. Does that help?
Yeah.
To me, it almost feels like, that how the brain is, there's this saying that the neurons that fire together, they wire together.
Yeah.
And then,
Yes.
so the brain likes the familiar pain more than the unfamiliar happiness. It's, as you say, it's almost like an addiction. It keeps on playing the same record because that's the one that it knows. And the
Yes.
brain also wants to protect and predict. So even though it's counterproductive, it likes to listen to the same crappy story over and over. At least it knows what the end of it is. And instead of getting to a new, uncharted territory and
Yeah.
find out if there's something good out there, which is crazy.
And dopamine is addictive.
Yes. Yes.
It is a hit. And fight or flight, yellow, orange, and red alert, we get pinpoint vision. We lose peripheral vision and color, but that pinpoint vision is so clear for a lot of people. If you haven't really focused on this, it feels very on top, in tune, in touch, and going for it because I'm so clear. But can you see the big picture too? And so, that's what we're going for, is a balance, this beautiful interplay between both sides of the nervous system that can do this amazing dance and go wherever, which side we need and want in that moment for our best welfare, not just physically, but as physical, emotional, mental, spiritual beings, right? So like the whole gamut. And that's where these little practices like chew your food to paste. And then another one that's also free. So it can be a little more challenging to fit in, but within a 24-hour period, hopefully we all can fit it in, and it's sleep. So we eat a really good diet, like a really good meal, basically a sit-down meal, chew to paste, and then leave space to rest, especially if you've had a big upset. If you've had a shock to the system, even if you don't want to, you can let yourself calm down a little, do breathing, do other things. But when you're up for it, chew your food to paste, then leave some space to just rest. And if you can go to sleep, That's the quickest reset there is. So, and you see this in nature. If you look up, I'm going to forget the catchphrase to find it, but there's really cool videos showing animals in the wild where a predator like a cougar, leopard, lion, somebody is coming and chasing, the gazelle or whatever it is. And there's this chase that goes on, and then the animal being chased actually just keels over, and you wonder if they died of a heart attack. They're just like laying there. And the predator is often unnerved by this and comes over and sniffs them, but won't necessarily eat them because maybe that animal's sick. And so then they walk away, and about a couple minutes later to maybe max 20, that animal like comes to and shakes it off and goes back and finds their herd. And what do? If the camera keeps following them, they eat, go to sleep. They wake up, they eat, go to sleep. And that's a really ideal way to recover from shock.
Quick question now that we're on that topic. How do you feel about, like, I know cold plunges and like more of the extreme stages are kind of big deals right now. How do you feel about that when you are in that like red alert and somebody doing something like instant cold exposure or more of those extreme measures?
I'm a huge fan of cold exposure, massive fan. There are parameters that I would put around it that a lot of people don't. So for this winter, I didn't do it as much, but the previous 2 winters, I was going minimally once a week. And I mean, I live in Minnesota, right? So all we need is a hole in the lake, and you go. And there's some keys to cold exposure that are readily available. Huberman has tremendous research and information on this. But when you do cold exposure, a lot of times, like at the lake, at the hole, we'll see. My friend Tanya and I do this together most often. So when we go there, we'll see all these people will be in the hole, and they have hats on and gloves on, and they're keeping their hands out of the water and their head out of the water. When you allow yourself to take those off and go under, and they have neoprene booties on their feet too.
Yeah.
So your sensors for the cold are in hands and feet, primarily. The biggest ones are in hands and feet and your head. And so when you allow yourself to submerge and come up, yeah, it's a shock, and you will get some cortisol release there, because if you stayed there, you could die. So it's appropriate, but you immediately calm your breath. You control the breath for the first few cycles, and that brings you back into parasympathetic very quickly. And you keep your hands, if you can, you have to listen to your own body. You keep your hands under the water, and you don't put covering on your feet, because you want your body to have that cold experience fully, get all the benefit out of it you can. You're already in 38-degree water. Like, why would you get less benefit from having had that cortisol rush anyhow? And then the other part of that is just really good to know is that the max amount of benefit from cold exposure in a 1 week time is 11 minutes. That's it. So do we need to go plunge for 4 to 10 minutes every day? No, you don't. In one day, you could, you're working your way up to this. You start with a cold shower, 30 seconds, then go for a cold shower, 1 minute. And I'm not talking 38 degrees like the frozen lake. I'm talking, 58, 68 degrees. That's cool enough to have a therapeutic effect. You don't have to go ice cold. And ice cold, it's water on a lake is not 32. Under that ice on top, it's warmer. It's like 38 or more. So it's not ice cold. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So 11 minutes. You work your way up to 11 minutes. And personally, I would do that all in one day, because I don't need more cortisol rushes in my week. There's plenty that life offers me for free.
Yeah. Yeah, life seems to dish them out. We don't need to go looking for them. That brings back memories. I'm from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we'd always leave the sauna, and they'd take the chainsaw and cut the big hole in the lake. They'd always have their hands covered, but they're always covered with a Busch Light beer cans. Is
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
um
No, I think it's really important to just pick 1 to 2, max 3 little tiny things that you can come back to. So if one of them is true to pace and one of them is rest, I'd say the third one that I would throw in that lineup is savor. So savor the moment. From where I'm sitting, this is my desk. And when I look out into the room, there's a picture above the piano that I just love the colors in, that a friend of mine who's just an amazing artist did for me. And so I'll just look over, and I don't even necessarily focus on the picture. I just enjoy the mix of colors. It's got like my favorite blues and the sienna brown, and it's an orangey. It's just beautiful. Or there's also, you can't see it, but there's a beautiful amaryllis. The flower is literally just bigger than my hand, and it's gorgeous. And so I'll look over at that. But finding things to savor if it's not readily apparent, if you're in fight or flight, your body's automatically looking for where the danger is. So we can take the reins and focus on something beautiful, joyful, that we're grateful for, that filled us with love. And here's a key. This is just a golden key. The brain will not distinguish between real and imaginary.
I was thinking this when you and Dinka were talking earlier. It's like I always say this. My family will laugh because I always say your brain doesn't know you're kidding. Like your brain doesn't know you're joking.
Right.
When you say those little self-deprecating jokes or those little
Yep.
things, your brain doesn't know you're kidding. I know you probably know the study where they put the neurons. They were reading the neurons firing on the Olympic athletes, and they did it while they were running their event, and they did it while they were thinking about their event in a dark
Visualizing.
room. And everything, muscles, everything fired the same, whether they were doing it or they were thinking about doing it.
Yep.
Nothing changed. So I had a client once that struggled driving, and she would always have panic attacks. And so I asked her,
Mm.
"Well, what are you thinking when you're driving?" And she's like, "Well, I'm thinking of like," and she explained this fiery crash death. And I'm like, "Well, that's why you're freaking out. It's because you're thinking that your brain doesn't know if that's actually happening or not happening." So we worked on like breath exercises and things, thought flips to get her not to think that while driving. And then the anxiety of driving went away. And I was like, yeah, because you were living a car crash every time you were driving your
Mm.
car.
Yeah. And the nervous system, like, think about it. When we have a big experience, and it doesn't mean it's our experience, we may have visualized it, we may have seen it in real life, we may have seen it on TV, or in a movie, but it can get locked and loaded because the brain is learning everything it can from our experience in order to keep us alive. And that is the sympathetic part of the nervous system. So we have the frontal cortex, which is our thinking, deciding, creativity. But we have limbic, which is, I'm tapping the back of my neck here. It's in the brain stem, it's in the upper part of the neck, and even lower down in the spinal cord. And so those are knee jerk automatic reactions. So if we touch that hot stove, my hand's back here before I registered it was hot. Like, it's a safety mechanism to get us out of danger. But if we savor moments of joy, beauty, gratitude, love, real or imagined, we start building that pathway. Nerves that fire together wire together, and we're building it towards prefrontal cortex. We're building it towards conscious action, conscious discrimination, being aware, being present. And that starts building a base that becomes excessively resilient. A deer can run in front of the car. We've immediately stopped on a highway. And the next moment we are, we're consciously bringing ourselves into parasympathetic. in an automatic way. It becomes built in. And so that's the beauty of, if you taste something delicious, stay with that for a few moments, stay with it for 30 seconds. It's rewiring you into a parasympathetic mode consciously so that you can do that at will.
And I think that's super important, and it's a theme that you've carried throughout this episode, as you keep saying building. And I was always a little example. I always struggled with like wanting to use tools in the moments, like when I'm in the shit, like my nervous system's a wreck. And then I'm like, well, this isn't always working. And it's because I wasn't building it into my days when I wasn't in the shit.
Right.
When I wasn't, like the moments where I'm like feeling okay now, and I'm like I can start to tell, right? That's when I'm like, okay, go for a walk, breathe, lower my stuff, because I'm building that into my day. You can't just throw a habit and go, okay, now I'm gonna cold plunge when I get stressed out. Yeah, watch. When you get stressed out, you're not gonna do nothing. You're gonna get stressed out because you don't have that built in.
You're going to walk around wondering where the risk is.
Yes.
What's coming next? I'm ready. It's a self-perpetuating cycle, but it doesn't have to be. And the beauty of it is that whole part about using the imagination, maybe not everybody's had this, but I think that before we're done here, all of us are going to have some experience in life where nothing feels right. Nothing feels safe. My body doesn't feel safe. Like, I don't have a safe place to go back to. And maybe it's just momentary, which would be awesome. But a lot of people, and maybe even some of you guys listening, you don't have a fully safe home, whether it's physical or mental or emotional or spiritual. And so, what do you do when your whole day has some built-in level of fight or flight that is appropriate? Okay, what do? You do these things. You do them anyhow. You pretend when you get a moment to yourself in a bathroom or with a locked door or out on a walk where you're just on yourself by yourself. You imagine what it feels like when you will be safe. You don't have to worry about that it's not true. You are imagining it into being. We can listen ourselves into our next iteration, into our next best self by just imagining it. And that's the power of this. And it's free. And you don't need to go to anyone. You do need to get creative and allow yourself to be absurd, because it will feel absurd if you're in that place, because it feels fake. And what's this going to do? And can this really change anything? And I'm just telling you, act as if for at least 30 seconds, multiple times a day. If I had a fairy godmother and she had a wand, what would I have her wave it at? Oh, maybe it is a ball gown. It really doesn't matter if it's realistic, and it doesn't matter if it's practical. It just matters if it's fun for you. So maybe it's a garden that exists on Mars, but I think it's really beautiful. And I have now planted all these things that are fully grown in there that are stunning and never been seen before. And I think that's fun. Well, boom, we're healing more. And if we think about it, if we're not in parasympathetic, if we're over here, yellow, orange, red alert, let's say we're at the top of red alert, 95% of our energy is going to defense and alertness and ready. So if we just do 5% less fight or flight, I've doubled my healing time. Doubled it. So this is exponential change if we're in a time of life where we're way over in red alert. So we actually get more proportional change from tiny little simple things there than we do per se in yellow alert, which is awesome because we need it there, right? Yeah. So is just take the tiny step and do it as often as you can remember in a day.
This really warms my heart, especially because it's a topic that Stacey Coley and I often talk about. And I know that you are also going to connect with her, or you have already. And that makes me so happy too, because you are incredible human beings, and there's no wonder that you guys feel drawn to each other. We always say that, what if your biggest contribution to the world is how high your frequency can be. And joy is so underrated. And basically, the best way for us to fight stress and to get out of this survival mode and, fighting the saber-toothed tiger or whatever it is, what if it is really just going into our imagination and dreaming about that garden on Mars or the, ball gown or whatever that is that makes you happy? I think it's so underrated and sometimes even ridiculed because
Totally.
it's not real, right? But
You
for you, for your experience, whatever you feel is real.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the funny part.
Yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. And that study that you mentioned, Brandon, with the Olympic athletes, they've redone this study. I mean, if you look it up on PubMed, it's going to show literally thousands of university experiments and other research-based experiments where they'll usually, they'll most often work with college athletes. And they'll have 3 groups. And the one group will actually just practice, and they'll try to practice whatever skill they're improving exactly perfect as they can. And one group will do half visualization of them doing the skill perfectly and half practice. And one group just visualizes themselves doing it perfectly. And that group has the most change.
Is that crazy?
Because when we picture it, we're sending these thousands of a millisecond messages to all the musculature. We actually, this is more potent than most people realize, because if we're injured, let's say I sprain my ankle, now I can't walk for a while. I'm like on crutches. I'm not going into the woods. I'm not getting out for a long walk because it hurts and it's exhausting. You can visualize yourself going for a walk, and you will maintain your muscle mass and your coordination and your balance, and you will not lose it even if you're lying in bed for a week or a month or whatever it is. And so this airy fairy, imaginative technique is actually completely science and neurologically based and has a foundation that is so free.
Yeah.
All we have to do is do it. And if we only did it for 30 seconds, it still works. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying tomorrow morning when you wake up, I want you to sit comfortably upright in a chair with your feet calmly on the ground and meditate for 20 minutes. That ain't going to happen if you're in fight or flight. Like, no way. I doubt anyone can do that. So how about just 30 seconds of savoring something real or imagined? I think that's doable. In fact, I know it is, because I've been working with this for, 3 decades now. And people come when they're in pain. When do we seek help? When I can't handle it anymore. Most of us are very independent people. We don't want to seek help if we don't need it. But most humans wait way past when they could have used help, because whatever, I didn't have enough money, I didn't have enough time, I didn't think I needed it, I wanted to be independent. Whatever the thing is that's going on in your brain, imagine a practitioner that you would love to see. I don't care if you never go see them. Just imagine them. What do you think it might feel like in their office? What would you like it to feel like? What would you like to feel like when you come out of there? You can start seeing how potent this is. The sky's the limit, and it can, when we're way over here in red alert, it can double our healing time in a day. I mean, it is potent. So those were some of the things I really wanted to help get out there in the world, because there is food scarcity, there is healthcare scarcity, but there doesn't need to be. If we can all share these ideas and practice them so that they come out naturally, because we're just sharing our own experience, not something we learned.
Yes.
Well, that's going to open doors for everybody, right?
It's funny that you say that, because I used to be super skeptical about like thoughts and a law of attraction and all this stuff, like super skeptical. And then few years ago when I started my transformation journey, and I kind of started to get more into Dr. Joe Dispenza and The Secret and different things. I really started to like put it into practice, and then I met people, tons of people that also put things like that into practice. And now I can't see that our minds, our bodies, the way we think, the way we speak, don't have such a powerful input on our actual overall wellness, because now I've lived it. Like you guys were talking, I was kind of smiling because I took a lot of risks to become a coach and start a business and leave the 9 to 5s and put my back against the wall. And there's been a lot of these last couple of years, there's been a lot of parasympathetic nervous system states are destroyed by a lot of stress, right? Because I was building a business and I had to do this all the time. I have been here today with what we're doing. 3 years ago, I visioned this, right? I was thinking podcasts, things, talking to people, networks, connections, school, all the way along the way. I've always put myself in that position. So I was smiling like, yeah, this stuff really works. Like it really, really, you can think yourself better, think yourself whatever you want to. You can't, in my
Yeah.
I was just thinking there are so many examples of this from like celebrities as well. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger was also one of really big on like, he just didn't accept that it's not going to happen. It was like borderline obsession. Or Jim
Right.
Carrey, who wrote a check for himself from $1 million when he was just starting out and walked around with it in his wallet, and he just said like, this is happening, I don't care, I'm manifesting this. And probably there are a million other examples of maybe people who are not even known or famous, but it's absolutely possible. And where attention goes, energy flows. That's just another rule of the universe, right?
Yeah, and I know we're kind of coming close towards the last parts of this. So there's two things that I'd love to throw out for everybody, and one of them is a goal setting formula or recipe, if you will. And so it's I'm grateful for blah, 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 as though you already have it. And so we use our emotion and we use our imagination to put ourselves as close to whatever that state is as we can. Can we do it? Probably not fully, because otherwise we'd already be there, right? But we can start the process. And I think of this as creating a mold for spirit to fill. So I am grateful for all right, I'm going to use one of my personal goals this year. Being able to do hang time, like actually hanging from a bar or a hang board or a playground thing for over 30 seconds, completely in ease in my entire body. This is actually a huge marker of health, and it's a protector of cognitive health. So our hand strength and dexterity is linearly connected to cognitive health and how long we'll live. So this is a goal of mine. So I would write, I am grateful for being able to have 30 seconds or more hang time put a date in there. It doesn't matter if you don't hit the date. Put a date in there. You don't have to have it be reasonable, but you don't necessarily want it to be stressful where you're going into fight or flight because of this date. So you put a date in there and then add or sooner, or better, or more. Do not limit yourself to what you can imagine right now. Open the doors. Let the universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to call something that works in the world outside of ourselves, to alter the mold that we're building in a way that's even better for us and the world. So I am grateful for 30 seconds hang time, full ease in my body. I blank date or sooner or better or more in grace and ease. We can get our goals and be super stressed out when they show up unexpectedly in a way that jars everyone around us. In grace and ease. And then I add another layer of surrender, and it's either for the good of the whole, and sometimes I'll add harmonious in the spiritual senses. And so with that, this is something I've played with from time management seminars, business seminars, personal development things. And I've just tweaked it over time. And this is the one that allows things to show up and not jar the people around me or myself. It's for the good of the whole. And so play with that if you want to, and just write it out. When we write something, it's called a haptic. So this movement of writing and the connection in the brain lays down a new consciousness. It is transformative. Writing is transformative. If you don't want to write, or let's say you can't physically write, if you can see yourself writing it or see yourself drawing a picture of it, a stick figure resemblance or just a symbol of it, even if you just see that in your mind's eye, it is effective and it starts opening that whole process to happen. So that's a golden nugget. And then one of the things that maybe we'll get to talk to another time is the fact that most of us have had falls, like not just when we were little kids, but like over 6 or 7, where we slipped and fell on something and bam, landed on our butt, hard and solid. Now, Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern countries where there's ice, this happens not irregularly, and when it happens to an adult, even a young adult, it jars the body, and our vision and our vestibular function, our balance and our proprioception all get coordinated in here, and it can get discalibrated. So think about a high-end telescope. It's very fine tuning how we can see out, right? But if we bonk it with something, it's not in focus anymore. But almost no one is being shown how to refocus their vision and their balance and their proprioception after a TBI, a concussion, a book or a vase falling off a shelf and hitting your head, or a fall on your butt on ice or the floor. These things can discalibrate us, and it just takes a ton of energy every single day to know where we are in space. And when that happens, we naturally slide up into fight or flight. This becomes our baseline, and all the things we're doing aren't quite bringing us back. Then we start looking at the physiology of the body. Do you know where you are in space? And we do that with super simple things. So your thumb, put it out in front of you, and you keep your head looking straight ahead, but you move your eyes and follow that thumb. And if you have had a big TBI or a bonk, a fall of some kind, just do it once the first day. Don't go overboard, because it may be an unpleasant experience. And then you can also do it to the side. Just do it once. And if you notice, well, these feelings are happening, or my neck got tight, or my stomach felt pressure, or I'm kind of anxious now, only do it once, maybe twice a day. Like, that's it. Start tiny, and then you can do more things. And so this is something that, yes, I'm going to be having as its own total separate course and module and health upgrader, but I'll also be putting out, there's going to be a YouTube channel launched pretty quickly here, but it'll be on there too, because these things, it's hard to even know you need this unless you've bumped into someone who knew, which this doesn't seem to be too common. The people that I see in practice, they've been suffering for decades.
Yeah.
And they had money and they saw great people, and no one addressed this.
Well, that really resonates with me, coming from, my background a little bit with head injuries. And really resonates with me. I've seen a lot of people, the same thing, where they battle with stuff for years and years and years, because they don't know certain things that after you get head injuries that you have to do. I'm gonna reach out to you. I want to schedule a roundtable where we discuss this and Better Brain Project with you, Karen, and a couple other brain health warriors that I've assembled in that group, because it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart for sure.
Yeah, and it's simple to do at home. Are there therapists that work with this? There are. Not everybody has access to them physically or financially or time. And so just knowing some of these things, is great. And just playing with your vision in a very gentle way. is really useful.
Great tips today. Sharon, it's always fun having these conversations. If anyone does have questions, hit the hand raising emoji. And before we kick off here, I'll let you ask your question. Dinka, are we going to do a second card? How does that work?
Yes, I have.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I forgot about the card.
So this time you get the stag, and it reads trust and thrive, which is, that's what you do. So I hope it resonates.
Totally. I live near a big regional park. And so even though I'm in the suburb and I'm like 15 minutes from the airport, there are deer here and they love our backyard, like big time. So stag and deer medicine is near and dear to my heart. It's pretty cool.
Amazing. Love it.
Yeah.
Mark Eldridge, you rose your hand. Go ahead, buddy. Take yourself off mute.
Yeah, thank you. Really great information, great session. Really appreciated all that. And just to help also everyone else that's listening as well. I know I wake up in the morning with a cortisol rush. And one of the things I've been doing is deep breathing. Pam, who's listening here as well, she's actually the last 2 days has had a clench in her jaw. And so doing the deep breathing and doing the meditation, I know those things can help. So just to wrap it all together, does it make sense to do them all together, do them separately? What's your thoughts as far as the deep breathing or the meditation, as well as what you're talking about with the imagination? Envisioning.
Yeah, I mean, I think stacking things that work well is fantastic. There's just a line at which the stacking becomes a stress. Do you know what I mean? When we start, so this is something I talk about. And actually, I've already filmed the first few videos that'll go out on the YouTube channel. And so this is really fun because I address this because, highly functional people don't get into trouble because, of lack of knowledge. It's usually because we've overridden our nervous system. And we can do that by doing too many healthy things. Okay. And so if we're so focused, and I did this, I mean, this is how I know. I wanted to get better. And so I was, trying to eat perfectly and organic and, enzymatically correct and food combination correct and blah, 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 blah. I had like 12 layers deep. I was trying to do at every meal. You can imagine that's freaking stressful. Like, that's insane. But I thought that the more healthy things I could fit into a day, the quicker I would get better. But it wasn't working, like, at all. Like, I was on the symptom hamster wheel. I was reliving the same stressors. And in fact, I was becoming more sensitized to stressors. So it was really going in reverse. And then, this is going way back, right? So this is going to undergrad. And I took anatomy and physiology because I knew I wanted to be a doctor to help other people not have to go through what I did. So I'm in this anatomy class, and it was the only way I could get into it was through special permission, and it was zoology. That was the only department offering it. So I'm in a zoology, anatomy, and physiology class. And we went over sharks and the nervous system, autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic, sympathetic. Sharks are very simple and straightforward, and they are awesome because parasympathetic is the only place healing happens. And so if we come into ready alertness to stack all these different healthcare things, we are now out of parasympathetic. We are now out of the healing mode. And so just letting things get comfortable with being comfortable.
I love that.
That's great. That's good.
Think into it. So can it work? It can work to the degree that your mind is now, how many things did I fit in or did I get them all in? We are out of a healing mode. So just watch for that. If it's fun, if it's like, oh, I can do my breathing and I can picture my symbol of my goal. Oh, that feels fun, and my breathing's opening. The body's not going to lie and the breath isn't going to lie. So if we're open, relax, maybe we start feeling hungry, maybe we start feeling tired. Those are all healing things. People don't like the tired. People don't always like the hungry. I don't want to stop to eat. I want to keep going. But those are all healing things.
Thanks so much. Good stuff.
Yeah, this has been super informative. I think I was seeing YouTube shorts gold all over a couple nuggets she was dropping, Dinka. Thank you for stopping by again, Sharon. Grab the link from Dinka because we're booked out till July. We'll just get you on a loop. We'll get you on a loop every couple months. We'll throw shit.
I love it.
Yeah.
You guys do such a great job, and I just love what you're doing, and it's joyful, and my eyes are like watering up. It just has so much value. So thank you for what you're doing.
It's so much fun, and it's such a pleasure for us to have you here and, soak up all your kindness and wisdom and all your beautiful light. So thank you so much for being so generous with it. Oh, I want to squeeze you now.
No,
I think that's a pretty
someday we'll all get together in real life.
You were telling me to manifest you were saying vision the practitioner. You're 4 hours and 5 minutes away from me. So I'm envisioning my practitioner.
You guys really have to do it soon because it's way too close.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So on that, thanks again for stopping by. Give us a follow, guys, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Pinterest. First Dibs podcast will drop in the foundations on the thread wall here shortly after this. Have a great day, everybody, and never stop evolving.
Thank you.